Thank you, Dr. Kirkwood. Welcome, everyone. I'm Darcy. I'm one of the PAs that works in the research side on the Melanoma Center. So we might not have met all of you, but I've been working with Dr. Kirkwood and Melissa and the melanoma team for 9 years now. So it's been, a good position. I really enjoy taking care of all the patients that we have. It's definitely very fulfilling for me. So today we're going to talk about preventative skincare. So we like to talk about how to, like Dr. Kirkwood said, manage these symptoms before they happen. So we're going to talk about a couple different things today, just the anatomy of the skin, and then I'm going to focus on moisturizers and sun protection. So why is this important? Our skin, as Dr. Kirkwood said, is our body's largest organ, and it is our defense system from the outside environment. So it's going to protect us from bacteria and viruses, UV light, dehydration, mechanical damage, like getting a cut or things like that. Our skin has our nerve endings that can alert us to temperature changes and pain, and then obviously it helps with temperature regulation. So really quickly, just to go over some skin anatomy, we have the top epidermis that is the top layer, and then in the dermis, we have our nerves, our sweat glands, the hair bulbs, and then below that, the veins and the arteries, and then the sub-Q layer, the fat underneath there. So the skin barrier is made up of dead skin cells, proteins, fats, lipids. I want to focus on the ceramides. So those are the lipids. They make up about 50% of the epidermis. And we want to think about those as the glue that holds our skin cells together to form that healthy skin barrier. So over time, as we age or even get exposed to different treatments, our skin can become thinner, less elastic, and that leads to increased moisture loss. So you may see in different lotions and things, a lot of companies are including ceramides in their lotions. I feel like that's gotten a lot more popular over the last couple of years. So that's why I wanted to talk about those. So they help us replenish that skin barrier. So typically what I recommend for a moisturizer to my patients is moisturizing at least once a day. Doing that right after you get out of the shower to kind of trap that moisture in can be beneficial. Ideally twice a day, especially if you're on treatment. I do definitely see a lot of patients complaining of dry skin when they're on treatment. Some areas, especially the hands in the winter, can require more frequent application. And then this is going to be if you are having a rash or something that requires a steroid cream. The moisturizers are going to be in addition to that. So it's really important to keep that skin barrier intact in addition to our steroid creams, because those can cause skin thinning as well. So what are we going to look for when we're looking for lotions? Fragrance and dye-free. We don't want to add anything that's going to cause an allergy, or an irritation. Alcohol-free, because alcohol is drying. Again, that's hard in the winter, especially if you're in healthcare and you're using hand sanitizer and things like that, which is why the hands often need more application. Brands that Melissa and I have recommended to patients: CeraVe, Eucerin, Cetaphil, Gold Bond Ultra Healing, and then Aquaphor ointment can be beneficial as well if you have a really dry area. I know when my kids were little, that was something that I really used a lot for them and still do in the winter. On this picture here, kind of illustrates a little bit about how the ceramides work. So the ceramides are that thick layer, and then the corneocytes, those are the dry or the dead skin cells that kind of come to the surface. So you can see the difference between the healthy skin and the dry skin. The dry skin has less ceramides in there, and so it's allowing the sun and different issues, different bacteria, things like that, to come into the skin and cause problems. Moving on to ultraviolet light, which is another big one that I know we've talked about in this meeting before. UV radiation is invisible radiation from the sun that damages the DNA. I think most people know that. So the UVA reaches the Earth's surface. It can go into the skin and damage connective tissue of the skin's DNA. UVB helps produce vitamin D in the skin and doesn't go as far into the skin, but can still cause sunburn and damage And then UVC rays are absorbed by the ozone layer. So why is sun protection important? Just a couple facts here. Skin cancer is the most common form of cancer in the US. Nearly 20 Americans die from melanoma. Sorry, skin cancer, melanoma is the most common form of skin cancer. Sorry, that should not say that. Nearly 20 Americans die from melanoma, the most dangerous type of skin cancer every day. The number one cause of melanoma is exposure to natural and artificial UV light. So research has shown that regular use of sunscreen in young adults is associated with a reduced risk of melanoma. So with sun protection, the two big classes that we talked about are mineral versus chemical sunscreens. Mineral or physical is illustrated in this picture here. It is going to sit on top of your skin and create a barrier, a reflective barrier. So the sun's UV rays just bounce off. In chemical sunscreens, the UV rays, the sunscreen is absorbed into your skin to form a chemical layer, and that chemical layer absorbs the UV light and scatters it and releases it as heat. So you want to think of the mineral sunscreen as a shield. Like I said, it sits on top of the skin, and main ingredients of those are going to be zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, sometimes a combination of both. This offers immediate protection, which can be beneficial. I know a lot of people don't like to wait for their sunscreen to work. So all of these sunscreens should be broad spectrum, water resistant, and SPF 30 or higher. Chemical sunscreens, again, absorb the sun's rays. So lots of big words for the ingredients here: oxybenzone, ababenzone, octitolate, octocrylene, methylate, and octinoxate. So those are all these crazy big words that people are like, what does this mean? So these are the chemical sunscreens. You do need 30 minutes prior to sun exposure for these to work. And just with the minerals, they should be broad spectrum, water resistant, and SPF 30 or higher. So here are my take home pieces for this. So I think the biggest issue with sunscreen is that people don't reapply it often enough. So you want to be really mindful of that. Reapplying every 2 hours when you're in the sun. And if you're swimming or sweating, even with these water resistant ones, you're going to need to reapply more often than that. Really important for sunscreen to check expiration dates. I do not recommend using any sunscreen that is expired. For the facial applications, the sticks can be easier to use. I know that's what I use for my kids in the summertime. And then probably the second biggest issue is people aren't using enough sunscreen. So you need 1 to 1.5 ounces to cover the body. And then if you're applying on your face, you want to do 2 finger lengths. So apply 2 finger lengths, and that should be rubbed in on the face and the neck. Sunscreen sprays, I know everybody likes those for the convenience. Those can be a little challenging. You can't tell how much you've used. The wind can take away some of it. But I know people like those, and sometimes that's the only option. So some sunscreen is better than no sunscreen. So if you're using a spray, you want to spray until your skin is glistening, and you want to rub it in to ensure even coverage. If you have to use it on the face, you want to put it in your hand first and then rub it on your face. So to make sure you're not getting it in your eyes or inhaling any of those fumes. So other things that we can use for sun protection is going to be UPF clothing. So that stands for ultraviolet protection factor. If you get one that's UPF 50, it's going to block 98% of the sun's rays. And this is both UVA and UVB. You can find this in swimsuits, rash guards, and this has come a long way over the past 9 years. They make this for dresses, hiking shirts and pants. Any activity that you're going to do in the sun really is going to have something with clothing with UPF factor in it. And this is important because you don't have to remember to reapply it. That coverage is going to be there as long as the quality of the material isn't compromised. Hats, super important. We want a wide brim, 3 inches around, and that's going to protect not only the top of your head, ears, and back of the neck. Those are places that I often see sunburn in patients. Again, same with the clothing. Those need to be tightly woven materials. So if you're buying a straw hat and you hold it up and you can see light coming through it, that's not going to provide you with enough protection. Sunglasses are also super important. Those should be 100% UV protection. You want to wear those anytime you're outside, even when it's not sunny, even when it's cloudy. That is still something that's important. for us to think about. References. And then here's a picture of my kids with their sun protection. So these are a little older. They're older now, but back you see at the beach, both wearing their hats and their rash guards. And then the slide is at their summer camp last year, both wearing their rash guards.